Welcome to Force Perspective. This place is a dumb hump. It's not Arbor Day. Today we'll be taking a look at Katana Zero, a fast-paced action platformer in a similar vein to Hotline Miami, but with a feel all its own and some stunning presentation. This is a beautiful, though not always pretty game. Things get pretty graphic. Yeah. There's a lot of drug use. A young veteran of a brutal war just can't seem to adjust to life back at home, with nightmares and visions of his past, the horrible things he just wants to forget, growing more and more frequent, day after day, night after night, becoming more and more vivid until finally he goes to see a psychiatrist who tells him to kill people. Who wrote this? So, Katana Zero is a pretty interesting game. Interesting in the sense that it entices you in with the promise of fast, one-hit kill gameplay, and then not only meets but exceeds those expectations, but that's not what I want to talk about. The unexpected elements are so strong that they sort of overshadow the main premise of the game. And admittedly, most of those elements are narrative ones. I sort of went into this game expecting either minimal story or a lot of over-the-top 80s action. And while there's some of that, some irreverent humor too, for the most part it's an eerie conspiratorial mystery. And it being a mystery, I don't want to spoil the events of the story, so instead I'll just say that there are strange, at the time unexplained things that happened, which sort of change the way you look at the game itself. And it does that in such a way that it got me really invested in not only the story, but the dialogue the story is often told through. Now, to be clear, there's nothing special about the dialogue system. Functionally, it's the same pick one of the listed responses systems that I doubt is new to anyone. It does have a Telltale-style tension-building decision timer with the added ability to, if you respond quickly enough, actively interrupt conversation, but overall, this is a pretty standard dialogue system. It doesn't add a whole lot to the game, but what does is the way the dialogue is framed. The situations you're put in before you get to those sequences, situations that will inevitably cause the player to have a certain response, what? And then you're given the opportunity to ask. It's simple, but extremely effective, which might as well be a theme for Katana Zero. It seems like they wanted to make this game have complex, in-depth branching paths, but it likely wasn't feasible for an indie developer of this size to do that without watering down everything else. So they made it linear, obviously, but then that brought up the problem of how do you have meaningful dialogue choices without those different paths? You just let it be meaningful, then, in that moment, you let the scene play out, and then add an extra scene that equalizes the game state, so in the next section, everyone's on the same page. It's such a simple solution to a pretty complex problem, but it works, and it works well. It seems like a bit of a cop-out, but it doesn't feel restrictive, it feels focused. In most games that give you this illusion of choice, it's sort of in the name, it's an illusion, false, hollow, and short-lived. But here, I'm not sure I would call this an illusion per se. Your choices don't have long-lasting effects, true, but they do affect the moment. During the section in which you make that choice, it matters. And not just with different responses. It's mostly that, but there's gameplay effects as well. Give the obvious bad guy your sword to cut a line of coke, and, well, you don't have your sword anymore, idiot. You have to play the game without it. For a bit, you get it back pretty quickly, but it's still a really bad decision. There's even a judgmental achievement for it. Don't ask how I got that. Anyways, getting back on track, I was legitimately impressed with how they managed to make choices seem meaningful, even if they didn't have far-reaching effects. Which is good, because they didn't. At all. There's only one choice that actually affects how the game ends, and that's whether or not you keep playing. I'm not being cute, that's an actual choice. A disappointing one. But that's my opinion of Katana Zero. It's an amazing game with some beautiful presentation, an unexpectedly compelling story, and all the fast gameplay that I didn't... disappointing one. But let's not get so distracted with the surprises that we forget what brought us here in the first place. The promise of fast-paced action. And as I did briefly touch on, that promise is kept. In essence, it's side-scrolling Hotline Miami. Not in a creatively bankrupt hack job sort of way, but in a you pseudo-tactically and ultra-violently bash open doors and people's faces, and then die, and then do it all again kind of way. And if I'm being honest, I might like the combat in Katana Zero more than Hotline Miami's. You're given more options to deal with enemies in a straight fight, which I really enjoy. You have an invincible dodge roll, you can deflect bullets, and even slow down time to allow you to do the previous two things more effectively. Plus, of course, the expected abilities to attack with your sword and throw objects at such an extreme velocity that it causes instant death on contact. Everyday stuff. But I don't really want to focus on Hotline comparisons, so to close this out, Hotline Miami leans more into the tactical stealth aspects that its camera lends itself really well to, whereas Katana Zero is more action-focused, and I kind of like this approach more. I can't say that the combat is on a level that will bring you back for more. Clearing out enemies can get a little repetitive, especially if you do more than one playthrough, and something else involving replayability, this is a very fast, responsive, and pretty short game. Perfect for speedrunning, yeah? I mean, it's got a chapter select, which is always nice, but it's... Well, that complicates things. I'd already made that part of the video. My problem was a lack of consistency when it comes to enemy patrols. Whichever part of the patrol the enemy would be on whenever you start or restart a level was random, and that's super annoying for speedrunning, but now you can just turn it off. So, I mean, it's still there for casual playthroughs, and it's annoying there too. All it does is add unnecessary frustration whenever you're having trouble with a section, so I guess I could complain about that. Why is this game so good? That's where I should have put it. Yeah, that makes more sense. But anyways, there is something I just want to take a moment to acknowledge. These little oddities. Extra events and interactions, most of which can be easily missed and don't really fit well into any other point of discussion. Things like being able to completely neuter a level of any real threat, including a boss fight, we'll get to those, by taking the hidden steps to avoid activating the security. Or Pyramid Head. He's here. Okay, that one's less exciting. Although it is probably a better example of what I'm talking about, because for the most part, these are just little Easter eggs or secrets that are interesting, but don't amount to a whole lot. With the only thing that's on the same scale as neutering a level of its climactic battle being another optional climactic battle in the form of a secret boss. But he does have somewhere else he fits in, so you're gonna have to eat your lunch alone. Sorry. Here's an extra slice of pizza. Basically, I just want it to be known that I like these Easter eggs. That's it. Let's kill some more people! So, Katana Zero's bosses are really good. Not this one. But all the other ones are good, because they actually allow you to use all those combat options I've mentioned instead of, say, gluing you to a motorcycle for a boring-ass chase section. And not doing that makes it so learning and avoiding bosses' attacks without any error, because the one-hit death rule still applies, really enjoyable. There's a good difficulty curve, ramping from the first, simple, pretty basic, wannabe, never gonna be, who has slow, predictable attacks with no real vertical elements to them, and eventually getting into some actual serious challenges later on. And despite the challenge coming from avoiding attacks, it does manage to avoid going bullet hell crazy, though that quick reset timer is still as handy as ever. Your hair's dumb. Really, the important thing to know is that the bosses, by and large, are challenging enough to test your skills, but still simple enough to be manageable. Except the secret one. He makes the rest of the game look like a tutorial. Yeah. Oh, and remember that thing I said about drugs at the beginning? Apparently, they didn't want us to feel left out. I love it. And that's pretty much Katana Zero. It's really good. The art, animation, sounds, music, everything's fantastic. The story sort of came out of nowhere and stole the show, but it's not like the gameplay suffers for it. It's as action-filled as I had wanted going in, and I never felt restricted in my actions despite it being a very linear game. Everything is framed in such a way that the gameplay and story sections don't feel separated. Few indie games have this degree of polish, and it does not go unappreciated. Nor do the fully rebindable everythings, which is honestly what I was more excited. I lead a very sad life. Did you know those things actually take up physical space? It's super